All right. Good evening, everybody. I would normally say afternoon, but it is pitch black outside, so I'm going to say good evening. Good evening, everybody. It is 5:30, and I can confirm we do indeed have quorum. Currently absent from the committee is Jordan DeCanos-Levy. It is my job here at the beginning of the 2024 calendar year for the Committee of Adjustment to do the election of chair. Do I have a nomination or volunteer for position of chair, please? Peter Skibo, volunteer. Can I have a mover of Peter? Moved by Douglas. Can I have a seconder, please? Moved by Jeff. Oh, perfect. Saw that. And any other nominations? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor of Skibo being chair? And that is carried. Mr. Skibo, you may come up. While Mr. Skibo is making his way up, I will call for any nominations for vice chair.
I could propose Ken.
Propose Ken. Ken, would you accept the position as vice chair?
Yes, I will. Thank you very much.
All right, so we have Somnath moving. Do we have a seconder for Ken Dakin to be chair? Seconded by Skibo. Perfect. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much, and happily turn it over to you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thanks very much, Ian. All right, welcome everybody to our last Committee of Adjustment meeting for 2023. If you have a cell phone, remind you to turn the ringer off if you could. Now, for those of you who are interested, who are with us physically tonight and are interested in a particular application, and if you'd like to receive written notice of any decision, please be sure to fill out the sign-up sheets that are located in the back of the room just to the right. I'll now read the following notice. So the notice of decision for the applications we review this evening will only be forwarded to those who have either presented a written request for the decision or to those who have recorded their names and addresses on the forms provided at the back of the room. Furthermore, a formal request is necessary to be advised of a possible Ontario Land Tribunal hearing on these matters and in order to be allowed to make a presentation to the Ontario Land Tribunal, otherwise known as the OLT. So if you're following along remotely, and you'd like to be notified of the decision or any appeals that may result, please send an email to our Secretary-Treasurer, Lindsay Stamen. Her email address is lsthamann.ca. And be sure to include your full name and address and the file number of the application. So at this point, I'll share with you the 5-part format that I use as we navigate through all of the applications this evening. In the first part, I'll start by introducing the applications. Now, if you are the applicant, please come up to the speaker's area to the right or to the left and state your name and address for the record, and then you'll have an opportunity to add any additional information to the application that you feel is necessary or to make any requests of the committee. In the second step, I'll invite members of the committee to ask questions of either the applicant or staff or their agent. And in the third step, I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Now, during the public portion of the meeting, you can line up to my right or to my left to the speaker's area, raise your hand, and when I recognize you, state your full name and address for the record, and then you'll have an opportunity to make your comments or ask your questions. Now, please don't expect a two-way dialogue or an immediate response to your questions or comments, because it's during the public portion of the meeting where we physically record the questions and comments, and it's only after I close the public portion of the meeting will the questions and comments be addressed by the applicant, the agent, or staff. For sure, I'll be calling 3 times for public comments before closing the public portion of the meeting, and every individual will be allotted up to 5 minutes to speak. In the fourth step, I'll give the applicant or their agent an opportunity to address those questions and comments from the public. And then in the fifth and final step, I'll turn the meeting back over to the committee members. Somebody will make a motion. We will deliberate on the application and make an ultimate decision. And then we rinse and we repeat, and I'll be using the same format for every application this evening. That's about it. So I'll now call on Ian, our clerk, to confirm quorum. Ian?
Hi, everybody. Through you, Mr. Chair, I can confirm we do indeed have quorum.
Great, thanks very much. So I'll now call the meeting to order at 5:34 p.m. and refer you to the agenda. So committee members, we have had two addendums, actually. One came out on Friday, and one was out this afternoon. So I'll now call for a motion to approve the agenda as amended. So moved by Somnath and seconded by Jeff. Okay, any discussion on this? So all in favor, raise your physical hands, and that is unanimously carried. Thank you. Now for confirmation of the minutes of the November 13th meeting, we've all had a chance to review them. Can I have somebody move acceptance? So moved by Gaurav and seconded by Ken. Any discussion? So all in favor, raise your physical hands, and that's unanimously carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? I see 5 shaking heads, 6 shaking heads, so that is no. We have no delegations. Moving on the agenda, we have no requests for deferrals and no returning deferred items. So now we're on to our first piece of new business, which is an application for minor variance for 1586 Centennial Drive. Lindsay, can I have you read this into the record, please?
Thank you, and through the chair, my name is Ian Clendenning, and I can act for Lindsay on this. This is an application for minor variance, file number D13-065-2023 at 1586 Centennial Drive to increase the maximum permitted width of the existing driveway along Centennial Drive.
Great, thanks for that, and welcome. So do we have the applicant here with us? Yes, if I could just have you state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. My name is Tarita Ditchke, and I'm the project manager with Transportation Services for the City of Kingston. I'm acting as the agent on behalf of Suncor Energies, who is the property owner for 1586 Centennial Drive.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Thanks very much and welcome. All right, committee members, do you have any questions for the applicant or staff? Yes, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I take it this is a very tight intersection and driveway, and an awful lot of the tandem transports are coming in off the 401 into the north end of Kingston there, and if I've got this correct, it's the only interchange in the city of Kingston that can handle double transports. Is this to also assist in the movement of these trailer transports in this area?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the intersection will accommodate the LCV long combination vehicles, specifically the southbound left turn movements. We will be introducing 2 left turn movements going that way. So we'll be also widening 2 lanes as a receiving lane. So the reason why we are having to relocate this intersection is to give that space at the intersection where if there's a vehicle who wishes to turn left into the property, has space to do so without backing up into the intersection. Long combination vehicles can still access this site through Robinson's Court, which is the second access point to the site, and that's been historically how they've been accessing the site anyway.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions from committee? I see none. So I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Do we have any members of the public with us in person or online who wish to speak to the application for 1586 Centennial Drive? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom.
I just want to confirm through you, Mr. Chair, there are no attendees in the public viewing gallery on Zoom.
Okay, so I'll call for, I guess, a second time. Is anybody with us this evening to speak to the application 1586 Centennial Drive? And I don't really see anybody, so I'll close the public portion of the meeting and come back to the committee for a motion. So yeah, moved by Somnath and seconded by Ken. All right, any discussion? Shaking heads. So all in favor, raise your physical hands. And that is unanimously carried. Thank you. Our next piece of new business is item number B for 525 and 555 Princess Street. Ian?
Thank you. Through the chair, this is application for minor variance, file number D13-064-2023 at 525 Princess Street and 555 Princess Street to reduce the required parking.
Great, thank you. And we have the applicant or the agent?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. My name is Kelsey Jones. I'm the agent for the applicant this evening. I'm a registered planner with Foten Planning and Design in Kingston. Nothing further to add at this point, just noting that I have reviewed staff's report. I'm in agreement with their recommendation and happy to answer any questions from the public or committee.
Very good, thank you and welcome. All right, committee members, do you have any questions for the applicant? Yes, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a few questions here of staff. The first is, I believe 0.4 parking spaces per unit is very low already compared to other areas in the city. So first question is there have been other developments along this Williamsville district. Have any other projects in this area reduced and gone through the committee to have their requirements for parking spaces reduced?
Thank you. Through the chair, I was the planner assigned to this file and wrote the staff report. I can also confirm that there have been a variety of applications where 0.17 parking stalls per unit have been approved. I can only say that they have been approved. I cannot definitively say without looking into it whether that was by the Committee of Adjustment or Council.
Thank you. So a follow-up then is, I take it this application is for a type of residential use that is not necessarily going to generate car parking spaces in its format that the buildings are being constructed in?
Through the chair, yeah, in addition to the locational criterion, proximity to various services, this development also proposes a high number of one-bedroom and studio units, which range in about 70% of the housing provided.
Thank you. So another question is, are there services in this area that will make vehicular transportation, or car transportation, unnecessary for most of the people who will be using this building?
Through the chair, great question. I would say that the proximity to a large number of the city's public transit routes within walking distance, being about 600 meters, as well as I believe all but one of the express transit routes are within that walking distance. There is a car share parking lot for anybody that's signed up with that private service, as well as taxis that apply the downtown area. And so, yeah, again, speaking to the highly walkable area to Queen's University and the Central Business District, those all mitigate the need to be to use a car to rely on that for transportation needs.
Okay, thank you for that. So the applicant here is looking at giving a compensation in cash in lieu of these parking spaces that the City of Kingston would be using towards parking garages or other facilities. Now, I can see the benefit of this, but are there going to be any parking garages, for example, that the city is even planning in this area, that this money could go towards to mitigate fewer parking spaces in the Williamsville district, or are these parking garages going to be elsewhere in the city?
Through the chair, again, that's a great point to highlight. Now, while the applicant is turning to the Committee of Adjustment to reduce the parking rate down to 0.2 parking stalls, i.e. providing one parking stall per 5 units, they do, through transparency, have an intent to turn through to the city and the delegated authority to the Director of Planning to further reduce that down, subject to this committee's approval, to 0.17 parking stalls per unit. So essentially, to give a number to that, that would be they're looking to get relief through a minor variance to allow 123 parking stalls for their development, and they ultimately wish to provide 105 stalls. So a reduction through cash in lieu at $8,000 per stall for 18 stalls. That money is then used by the city under Section 40 of the Planning Act that allows an agreement registered on title, and that agreement in part would highlight that the city is under no obligation to provide parking for a specific user. It is just money that goes to the city for general parking purposes. So making that distinction clear is that we are not providing a one-to-one parking off-site for an individual unit. This is money that the city uses across the city. It is at least written into the bylaw for cash in lieu of parking that one option that the city might consider is to facilitate a car share program or other type of service. So that money we are only now starting to collect through that bylaw, and I think details on programming, or if it was council's wish to essentially provide an additional parking structure, that would be determined at a later date.
Oh, yes, James?
Thanks, and through you, Chair. I can just build a little bit upon, excuse me, Mr. Clendenning's answer. So we as staff are aware that there are more, I think, growing parking constraints downtown in terms of the available communal parking that's available to residents or visitors that are coming to and from Central Kingston. So the city does have a large parking lot located further up Princess Street that exists today that people can park at, and there is available street parking in the area. But in terms of a parking garage or a new parking lot that is currently planned, we don't have anything under development at this time, but we are investigating our existing parking assets to see how they can be better utilized to provide additional parking supports in downtown Kingston, as well as looking at strategic partnerships when properties redevelop to see if we can accommodate additional communal visitor parking in those structures. So it is part of our growing portfolio as we intensify the downtown area. It is under review and we are working on that specific piece, but nothing available at this time to bring forward.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And a question now for the applicant. So what is the reason why the developer will not be able to meet the full complement of parking that the City of Kingston requires in this situation?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for that question. The short answer is financial viability of the project. Through the geotechnical study that was completed as part of the building permit process and the current site plan review process, the cost to excavate the bedrock underneath the site is cost prohibitive to provide the number of underground levels that would be necessary to provide the 0.4 spaces per unit. So it really comes down to the financial viability of the project.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you. Any committee members, any other committee members with questions? No. I just have one follow-up to your final comment regarding financial viability. If they reduced one floor, took one floor away, would that not bring them more in compliance with the performance standards?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Great question. It's unfortunately not that simple because potentially removing further units from the building would also affect the financial viability. So it's a very, complex balance, if you may, between providing enough residential units to actually provide a proper return of investment while also trying to figure out what that balance of parking is. So I wish I could say that yes, just taking off a floor would be enough, but it also it impacts the financials of the project. So unfortunately at this time, it's not possible to further reduce the number of units, which is why we are before the committee to seek this relief.
Okay, and one other follow-up question to that. Under their current performance standards, what are the adequate number of parking spots without any requests for relief? What was that number?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Ian, do you want me to answer or you want to take it?
Thank you, through the chair. It would be 246 at a rate of 0.4 stalls per unit.
Okay, so 246, and this variant seeks to reduce that down to what?
123.
123, so half. And then there's further plans to buy out some of those spots to further reduce it using the cash in lieu of parking bylaw? And how many additional spots would be lost?
Through the chair, it would ultimately provide 105 for a further reduction of 18.
So it reduces 18 out of the 123?
It reduces, through the chair, it reduces 18 of the 123.
Okay, so there would be 105 combined units left over.
Through the chair, correct.
Yes, okay. And the mix of that would be for residents, visitors, car share, and accessibility?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there are no other questions from committee members, I'll open the public portion of the meeting. So do we have any members of the public with us this evening wishing to speak to the application for 525 and 555 Princess Street? Please raise your hands, or if you're online, raise your hand on Zoom.
I'll just quickly reconfirm, Mr. Chair, there are no members on the public viewing gallery.
Thank you. So do we have anybody with us this evening who wishes to speak to the application for 525 Princess Street? Okay, I see some head shaking no. So I'll close the public portion of the meeting and come back to the committee for a motion. Yeah, so we move it, so at least we got to get it onto the table. So moved by Somnath, and do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by Ken. Any discussion? Ken? Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Ken. Oh, we want to hear from you. Can you unmute Ken? Okay. Oh, there we go.
No, I didn't have any question or further comment to make, Mr. Chairman, simply to second the motion.
You second the motion, got you, thank you. Okay, and any comments from, yes, Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm fully aware that the Williamsville district is an intensification project, and unlike other parts of the city, there are proximity to services that are unavailable, say in the West End, and that there are bus routes, et cetera, down in this area that will be able to move people around, and the need for vehicles is nowhere near as high. And I'm also aware that the expense of putting underground parking for this facility can actually be a detriment to us getting an awful lot more affordable units. So, but we did get a letter of objection from the neighbors, fully concerned about the effect on their parking. But this is not going away. This has been going on for an awfully long time, and it's something that council should be aware of as happening as a part of the Williamsville project. But in sight of what is going on with this project and other projects that have already been in front of this committee asking for reductions in their parking, et cetera, what I'm considering doing is at the next meeting bringing forward a motion from the committee to council to say that they review in light of all of these situations, that we can't just keep doing minor variances on a project that essentially council should review. And so that with all the information that's coming forward now, so that it standardizes the expectation of what is going to be going on. But in this situation, I will be supporting this application.
Well, thanks for that. And I do echo certainly your comments as well. I think further direction from council is really important because we've seen some applications where through delegated authority plus minor variances, the effect was to have zero parking on site in an area that's of a, in a highly constrained area. Doug, did you have a comment you want to make?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, it's not on this file, it's on another file.
Okay. Any other comments from committee members? So I also read the letter from Ms. Zakos, I think, and she also wrote a similar letter to an application, I think 2 or 3 doors up, 567 Princess Street. My personal feelings are, and I have properties in this area, I know it's a constrained area, and I think building up is great. Intensification is a grand and great thing to do, but if you do it in such a way that you're not able to accommodate the way people live, I think you're just setting people up for failure. Those people and then the neighboring people. And while I respect the work that's been put into it, I certainly think some direction from council is warranted, but I won't be voting in favor of this one. So any other comments before I call for the motion? Okay, so I guess, yeah, we have a mover and seconder. Okay, so all in favor of the application, raise your hand. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, and 1 opposed. The motion carries. Thank you. All right, our next application is for number D, 5 York Street. Ian, could you read this? Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one. My bad. Palace Road? Okay, yeah, 390 Palace Road. Ian, can I have you read that one in?
Thank you. Through the chair, this is an application for minor variance, file number D13063-2023 at 390 Palace Road to allow for a reduced rear setback to facilitate the development of an office building addition.
Great, thank you. And do we have the applicant or their agent in the room or online?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. I just received an email from the applicant. I think he may have been having a bit of trouble finding the meeting room.
Okay. Yes.
Mr. Chair, I would suggest we defer this, this item until later on in the evening.
Yeah. Do we have concurrence for that? I don't need a vote for it, but everybody's in agreement of that? Okay, so let's defer this toward the end. So right now then we will in fact go on to item number D. Ian, can you read that into the record, please?
Thank you. Through the chair, this is an application for minor variance, file number D13059-2023 at 5 York Street to allow for a reduced front setback to permit the construction of a porch.
Great, thank you. And do we have the applicant or the agent with us? Oh, yes, so if you want to come up to one of these speakers. So welcome, if we could just turn the mic on and state your name and address for the record.
Neil and Mary Glenn. The house we own is at 5 York Street. We are renovating it. We don't live in it at the moment.
Okay. Great, thank you and welcome. Is there anything further you wanted to add to the application?
We're in touch with, with the planner.
Yes.
And we will be deferring it to the next meeting. Our neighbor that we are attached to is opposed to the fence, between the privacy fence,
Okay.
which is a requirement of the city.
Okay.
And we prefer not to have it, so we will be applying for a minor variance to do away with the privacy fence, since neither of us really want it, and she is really against having a privacy fence.
Right, okay. So you said the word deferral. Did you want to defer the meeting tonight?
So I was in touch with Jacob, and I thought Jacob had forwarded that on. Oh, you Jacob? Yes. You're on.
Sorry, thank you, and through the chair. Yes, we had decided to defer this application relatively late in the day, so unfortunately, we're unable to forward it to clerks in time for a formal deferral, but we just wanted to address the situation in the meeting. Yes, I think the applicant summarized the situation very succinctly and accurately. We received comment from the neighbor at 3 York Street earlier today regarding the privacy fence, which is a requirement of the zoning bylaw.
Right.
Since neither party is really interested in having the privacy fence, we've learned now that we're supportive of removing the requirement for a privacy fence through a minor variance, but since that wasn't addressed as part of the public circulation for the initial application, we've decided to defer it to the next available meeting, at which time we'll be able to properly circulate notice for this other variance and then address the both variances at that time.
Thank you. And so Ian, what's our procedure?
So through you, Mr. Chair, what we'll have to do is to just quickly get on the motion on the floor. So we'll just need a mover and seconder, and then a motion to defer to the next meeting. And we'll need a mover and seconder and a vote on that, and then we're good.
Okay. So Doug? Yeah, moved and seconded by Jeff. Any discussion? What's that?
Then we need someone to move the motion.
Oh, okay, so that was the motion for the whole motion, okay. And now I need a motion for to defer. Somebody to move the motion to defer. Doug again? Okay, and Jeff. So Doug and Jeff. Defer. All right, and any discussion? So all in favor, raise your physical hands, and that is unanimously carried. Thank you, and see you sometime. All right, number E, the next application is for 1580 and 1600 Rockwell Drive. Ian, can you read this into the record, please?
Thank you. Through the chair, this is an application for a minor variance, file number D13022-2023 at 1580 Rockwell Drive and 1600 Rockwell Drive for relief for privacy yard depth, berm, and landscaping, balcony length, and additional visitor and car share parking provisions.
Great, thank you. And do we have the applicant or their agent? Yes, please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Tess Gilchrist. I'm a professional planner with Arcadis, and I'm here on behalf of Homestead this evening.
Great, and welcome. Is there anything further you want to add to the application?
If I may take a few moments, yes, I have a few things to note. So again, on behalf of Homestead, we are seeking variances associated with privacy yards, parking, landscape buffers, and balcony projections for these two properties at 1580 and 1600 Rockwell Drive. I will focus on the parking variances, as I believe those variances related to landscape buffer, privacy yards, and balcony projections are a little bit less detailed. For a bit of context, the two subject properties are proposed to be developed with 12-story residential apartment buildings with 158 units each, and they have a combination of below and at-grade parking. The below-grade parking podiums are connected to each other, as well as a third building, which is under construction now. I think everyone's probably familiar with that if you've driven down Gardner's and gone to the RioCan. The site-specific zoning for the subject properties was established under the former zoning bylaw 7626, under a site-specific bylaw 2017-46, which was for the larger property known then as 700 Gardner's Road. And this zoning was put in place as part of the subdivision plan for the overall development of these lands. And so at that time, zoning bylaw 7626 did not include parking space maximums or minimum requirements for visitor and car share. So since that time, Kingston zoning bylaw has come into force, and the site-specific zoning on the property became legacy exception 89. So through this change, all other general provisions of the Kingston zoning bylaw 2022-62 now apply, including standard parking maximums, visitor and car share parking rates, as well as the maximum length of balcony projections and bicycle parking. So the first building went through under the former zoning, got its site plan approval, building permit, and now it's time for the next two buildings, which were intended for the property as part of the overall development, and they're proceeding under site plan approval currently. There's applications in, they've gone through 2 rounds of comments. And so we know through the detailed design for these buildings that the requested variances are before you this evening in order for this development to proceed as it was originally intended. And again, just to reiterate, what is being proposed on the property was reviewed as part of a site-specific zoning amendment in 2017 in principle for the proposed high-density residential use, including parking rates, parking space sizes, et cetera. And so now that, again, we have the benefit of the detailed plans at site plan, we had to refine it, and we're also subject to the new zoning. So what is before you is essentially a customized parking strategy that does include a combination of standard visitor and car share spaces, as well as bicycle parking. And a large number, about 25% of all of those parking spaces are going to be electrical vehicle ready, EV ready. So overall, the proposed parking provides the residents and users with sufficient vehicle parking, meets all of the bicycle parking requirements, and exceeds the requirements for EV ready parking spaces. And so this tailored approach is consistent with City of Kingston active transportation and sustainability goals. And so we are requesting reductions to the number of visitor and car share spaces, but we are also proposing through permissions within the zoning bylaw to use some of the car share spaces that are being provided as visitor spaces in the interim. So the staff report gave an excellent overview of the applications, and it also has a really helpful and clear parking breakdown table on page 12 of 16. And so I just want to highlight that we're at 1580, we're proposing a total of 192 parking spaces, which is a total ratio of about 1.21, and a total of 219 spaces. And again, keep in mind this is for 158 units times 2, 316. So on 1600 Rockwell, it's a total parking ratio of 1.39. And again, that's a blend of all 3 types, standard, visitor, and car share. So the car share spaces are being provided. We're meeting the minimum of 0.05 per unit for a total of 16 spaces across both properties. And there's also a total of 6 visitor spaces. So we have 22 kind of non-residentially designated spaces, non-standard spaces, I should say, which can be used for visitors to both properties. They're distributed across both properties. Lastly, I would just say that Homestead is one of the city's largest rental housing developers and property managers. And so although this customized parking approach before you this evening does require relief from the zoning bylaw, it is supported by decades of practical experience managing parking for their tenants. And it's also supported by our professional planning opinion that the proposed parking strategy is an appropriate amount and distribution of parking spaces for the proposed residential use in this location. And of course, I'm available to answer any questions in concert with staff.
Great, thank you. That was very good, very, very clear. You've answered some of my questions already. All right, committee members, do you have any questions for the applicants or staff? Yes, Doug.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What wasn't clear to me in this application was, will the standard parking spaces be usable for visitors or swapped around, or are they designated to a specific apartment unit?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The intention for standard parking spaces is that they would be assigned to a specific unit. If perchance Homestead found themselves with a surplus, which I feel is probably unlikely here, There is the potential for them to be used on a short-term basis by visitors to the site, but generally speaking, the standard rate is assumed to be assigned to a per unit for the tenants that live there.
Good. Okay. Yes, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My questions here are about the landscaping situation. I take it we're dealing with a situation where one building was built under 7626 and the other two buildings are being proposed under the new city zoning bylaw. What was the buffer landscaping for the building that's under construction right now?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I don't have the details of the existing building under construction now in terms of what was proposed, but I can confirm it would have been in compliance with zoning that applied through the legacy exception, which was previously the site-specific. But again, that was before zoning bylaw 2262 came into effect.
Okay, so in this situation here, you're looking for relief from a requirement of a 1 meter high berm, if I've got this, and a full landscaping strip. What is it to be replaced with?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the question, and it's a little bit of nuanced language. Essentially, landscaping is being proposed, just not in the exact configuration that the zoning required through the use of a berm. So there is an existing easement that affects the property there that prevents the piling of additional land over it. So we are not doing a berm, but we are doing extensive landscaping in between the street and the parking area at the front of 1580. And I would also note the configuration of the parcels. It's for 1580 only because that's where the frontage abutting Rockwell Drive is.
Okay, so I'll follow up here with, so Homestead owned these properties under 7626, the previous zoning bylaw. And when the new zoning bylaw was being proposed, why didn't Homestead go for site-specific zoning on this property, knowing that what they were going to be required to do for these buildings?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can't confirm the date of transfer from the previous owner to Homestead. I simply don't know, but it was understood that the site-specific zoning was already in place, and their understanding was that they could build what they were intended to do on this property. And so it wasn't until, site plan pre-application took place and a detailed review of the new zoning bylaw that it was determined that 100% compliance wasn't possible.
James?
Thanks, and through you, Chair. That's a great question because zoning is different for every property. So what was carried forward was the exception that they had previously obtained under 7626, but inside that exception, there were no specific variances to the parking provisions. So because that wasn't built into the exception, the parking provisions that applied under 7626 were in the parent bylaw. So when the exception was carried over, the 7626 parking requirements in the parent bylaw didn't apply. Now the parking provisions of the Kingston zoning bylaw apply. So only in an instance where something is built directly into an exception does it ever get carried forward, and then just the general provisions in the parent bylaw would apply. So that's the situation that happened here because they didn't say the minimum parking is X per unit in the exception. It just defaulted back to the provisions of the bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Any other questions from committee members? Yes, Ken.
I have two questions, Mr. Chairman. The first is for the consultant. I understand the parking strategy, and I also understand that the existing building under construction was completed its site plan approval under the previous bylaw, or nonetheless, the previous bylaw standards applied at the time of site plan approval. My question, therefore, is whether whether visitor parking spaces were provided with the existing building, notwithstanding the fact that the bylaw didn't require anything. My concern being whether the 22 parking spaces you described for these two new buildings will be burdened by parking demand from the building under construction at this time?
Through you, Mr. Chair. That is an excellent question. I don't have the detailed information in terms of the parking breakdown for the building that was already approved. I'm looking to my right here for helpful information from the staff.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have the site plan drawings up for the apartment under construction, and it does show at grade level, there are 7 visitor parking spaces shown in this agreement.
Okay.
Oh, that's very helpful. My second question would be, again, to the consultant, if she could characterize what design steps will be taken to mitigate loss of privacy for, I think it's the ground floor units in the 2 new buildings as a product of proximity of walkways to the building corners. I found that a complicated discussion in the report, but I got the gist of it, but I wasn't clear on what design mitigative steps will be taken in light of that particular design for walkway proximity to the building corners.
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair. And again, this is an interesting kind of situation of the former zoning bylaw requirements versus what we're working with currently. So the requirement for privacy yards is included as part of legacy exception L89, legacy 89. And that again is a carryover from terminology in bylaw 7626. But essentially the intention is to ensure that ground floor units have, sufficient separation distance between the walkways and the ground floor unit windows to maintain privacy and create a nice condition. So in this situation, the 1.5 meter wide walkway, which encircles the building and is a benefit itself as it serves to provide residents and visitors with easy and safe access to front and rear entrances and from the street or parking areas. So what we have done is measured, we've changed the calculation of how privacy yards are measured from the windows themselves instead of for the full face of the wall, noting that people's experience from inside their units are going to be most impacted by their views out the window. So we've ensured an adequate distance as measured perpendicular to where the windows are located. Where the walkway wraps around, it's really quite tight, but only at the kind of 4 corners of the building, whereas it spreads out and there's more space adjacent to the ground floor units. And anywhere those units are adjacent to entries or loading areas, additional screening is being proposed as well to ensure the kind of visual screening.
Great, thank you. Any further questions? I just had a note of clarification, I think more from staff. It goes to page 97 of the package, so it's on page 107 of the PDF. There's a reference to variance number 11. I'm thinking that's a typo, because I think there were only 9 variances.
My apologies, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Do you know what page it is in the report? And hopefully I can provide
Sir,
clarification.
it's 107 in the bundled report, or that, which includes the agenda, or page 97 on the report itself. So.
Through the chair,
Yeah.
if I may just get some more clarity, what paragraph of that page?
Second one. So it's at the very top. It says page 12 of 16.
Yep.
Of report number, and it starts with variance number 8, and then it jumps to variance number 11.
Understood. Yes, happy to provide some clarity on that. So I think the numbering of the variances is consistent with the original list at the top within the recommendation.
Okay.
But then here, the variances have been grouped by type.
Sure.
In terms of the way they're spoken to. So like variances are grouped together, and then
Okay.
the justification follows subsequent.
Okay, but I think the highest variance we saw through them all together was 9. Yes.
Sorry, I'm afraid that is a typo.
Okay.
On that page, variance 11 should
Okay.
read as 9.
All
My
right.
apologies for
Okay,
the typo.
no worries, yeah, just to clarify, thank you. Okay, I have no other questions. Committee, yes. Doug?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Just a procedural clarification. We have a number of variances here. Are we able to split them into groups or make them individuals?
I'll defer to the clerk.
So through you, you are able, yes, to split them up. It is a little procedurally messy because technically each of the variances is part of the one clause, almost like paragraphs of one clause. But you are procedurally able to do so, yes. If it is more advisable if you dislike a certain feature of the application to just vote against the thing. It is procedurally cleaner, but you can vote, we can split them and vote them individually, yes.
Okay, Mr. Chair, my thought is if any of us are going to vote against any of this, it's better to let the applicant know where the problem is instead of just saying, negative to all 9 of them. Maybe there's one that's wrong and the others are okay. So that's why I'm asking the question.
Sure, I think it's, I think that's fair. I think obviously you're, not to put words in your mouth, but you're fine with pretty much the whole, with everything as an omnibus, but with the exception of 1 or 2 variances that you'd like to spin out. Committee members, what are your thoughts on that? Which way would you like to proceed?
Mr. Chair, I agree that if there's something in here, a certain variance that we personally dislike or
Okay.
have problems with, that we should be able to remove on that variance and vote on that separately. Because in fact, the application may go through
Yeah.
with one aspect removed
Right.
instead of the entire project failing
Yes.
for one technical thing.
Okay.
But we'll defer.
Okay,
So procedurally that way, what I would suggest through you, Mr. Chair, is that the applications, when we get to the mover and seconder for the whole item to put it on the floor, when members wish to then speak and make comments, if they wish to indicate which ones they would like separated for the vote. So for example, if it was variance, if there was a 15 variance thing and it was variance 15, the member would indicate variance 15, and then all the ones that no one has an objection to, call the vote immediately on those, and then call the vote separately on the ones that have been separated out. Thank you.
all right. And Ken, did you have a comment?
I had a question, Mr. Chairman. We have not yet hit the public portion of this particular application. Is that correct?
That's incorrect. We're not. I'm still through. I haven't hit the public yet.
Yeah. So we're still into the point where the committee can ask questions, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. I do have one further question.
Okay.
And my question is of staff. We've seen this on a few applications based on the parameters of the new zoning bylaw, which parameters permit visitor usage of designated car share parking spaces. In this particular application, and one we've seen, at least one previously, well, the one tonight, rely on the car share spaces, the obligation for car share spaces to serve as visitor. I would appreciate some observations from staff, if they could, as to what they sense as, I guess, forecast a timeline when they think that the car share program will grow to the point where these temporary visitor spaces will be compelled to convert to car share purposes and hence are lost for visitor purposes. Can staff forecast?
Sure. James? Megan?
Thank you for the question, and through the chair, happy to speak to that. So the provisions of the Kingston zoning bylaw that require car share parking spaces, as well as the city's cash in lieu of parking bylaw, work together in part in that they're both intended to provide for and encourage the establishment of car share services within the city of Kingston. As we've heard before, there is one currently of a small scale, but the intent is to allow for the expansion of that and to minimize, in turn, the requirement for private vehicle ownership. So those provisions were brought in with the Kingston zoning bylaw in 2022, along with the update to the cash and lieu of parking bylaw. So over the last year or so, we have seen a few opportunities come forward to allow us to take advantage of that update to the cash in lieu of parking bylaw and to begin to accrue funds into that pool of money that is intended potentially in part to allow for partnerships between the city and potentially a car share program to allow that type of car sharing to expand across the city. So I would say, although there is not currently an expiry in the Kingston zoning bylaw for that provision that allows visitor parking spaces to be used, or pardon me, car share parking spaces to be used as visitor parking spaces, it's something we'll have to continue to monitor over time as the use of those spaces as true car share spaces that they were intended to be becomes more and more viable, and as potentially the popularity and the usability of car share parking in the city of Kingston becomes more prevalent.
Does that hit that, Ken?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. It's a very interesting combination that I have not yet seen, except here in Kingston. And my sense is I can see the value, the definitive value of cash and lieu, especially in the downtown where it promotes, as needed, collective public parking lots. Conversely, in this part of the city, in the suburban setting, less so on public parking lots and more so on promoting car sharing installation and availability itself, with or without public parking lots.
Yep, very
Just
good.
a thought on my part.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank
for
you
that.
very much, Megan.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so I'll now open the public portion of the meeting. Do we have any members of the public with us wishing to speak to the applications for 1580 and 1600 Rockwell Drive?
I will just confirm once again, there are no members in the public viewing gallery on Zoom, and I do not believe there are any members of the public in chamber either.
Okay, thank you. I see no members of the public in the chamber either, so I'll close the public portion of the meeting and come back to the committee for a motion. So somebody want to move? So moved by Somnath and seconded by Ken. Okay, discussion? Doug?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm wondering if we can split out a couple of these because I'm not comfortable with them.
Okay.
And, but let the
Certainly.
developer build the rest of them. What I'm not, am I allowed to say what I'm
Yeah,
not?
please
Okay.
name the variances and your rationale.
The visitor parking, I'm very uncomfortable with.
Okay.
Living in a high-rise, I see different things, and I don't think this is viable the way it is. And
Okay.
they've got surplus of other spots, so it wouldn't be much for them to just fix it.
Sure, so variance, is that variance 10 and 11? Do I get that right?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are 9 variances before the committee, so that would be variances 8 and 9.
8 and 9.
The
yes.
ones for the visitor parking spaces.
Yep. So variance 8 and 9. You confirm that? Do you have it there? Yep.
Mr. Chair, are we, so we're dividing those two off to be voted on separately?
Yes.
So we have a motion on the floor for variances 1 through
7.
1 through 7 at the moment?
Yes.
And has that been moved?
It's been moved, yep.
And it's been seconded as such?
Yep.
Okay.
So just want to quickly clarify, everybody, because this is the first time this has ever happened at the committee, so just to let everyone know. So what all 9 variances are on the floor. What the committee has consented to doing is to separate out the actual physical voting of the items. So we will do the ones that no one has an objection to first, and then we'll do the ones that people have indicated last. So they're all technically on the floor. We'll just do the voting for them separately.
Thank you. And Gaurav, I see you have a question?
Mr. Chair, just a process question. So wouldn't it be cleaner, since there is already a motion put on the table, for us to vote on that and seek majority? And if there isn't majority, then perhaps go in a different direction? because there might be consensus on the first one that's on the table already.
So through you, Mr. Chair, if there was simply a vote now, and the whole thing passed, then it's a moot point regardless of whether or not someone wanted to separate it out. So, and there's no consideration from there. The application would have been deemed to have passed the committee if it received a maximum amount of votes there. Thank you.
And Ken, you had a follow-up to that?
Yes, I'm looking at the agenda pages and I understand that the two variances to be separated out deal exclusively with minimum visitor spaces, which would be variance number 5 and number 9. I don't understand why number 8 and whatever one was mentioned previously are the ones for separate vote if the subject matter at
Okay, yeah.
provoking a separate vote is visitors.
Thanks.
Which ones are we dealing with here?
Thanks for that clarification. Doug has just confirmed it is in fact 5 and 9.
Right. Thank you.
And what? In the summary, 5 and 9 in the summary, yeah. Right. And James, you had a comment to have made?
Thanks, and through you, Chair, I think myself and Megan were both going to just clarify that if you're looking to separate out visitor, it's 5 and 9, but it seems like Ken has already pointed that out, so we're good.
Okay, good, thank you, thank you. All right, and Somnath, you have your hand up.
Yeah, procedurally, I had put my hand up to consider the whole thing en masse. So I didn't put the hand up to break it up.
Okay,
I mean, if it passes, it passes. If it fails, it fails. We'll deal with the consequences. But I don't know if I've ever run into a situation where we break things apart because
Right.
of, you know,
well,
because, yeah.
sure. I think the idea is that it's on the table. We need somebody to motion it on the table, whether or not they even agree they're going to vote in favor of it, and then somebody to second that, to put it on the table so we can have the subsequent discussion, which could include splitting it up, as we have in this
Yeah,
case.
Sorry.
It's procedurally wrong in the sense that, yeah, someone wants to go against it, then please feel free to go against it.
Yeah, so
I think the whole thing was presented holus bolus as a single document.
yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, what I can do is again provide some additional clarity. So there's no need for an additional motion to vote separately on items. So the whole thing is done by request. So if the committee also wishes to just consent to vote on all 9 together, and if it passes or fails, that is the will of the committee that way. If, as Mr. Perkins has indicated, he wishes to vote separately on variances 5 and 9, that is done purely by request of the committee member, and the committee can either consent or not consent to doing so. If the committee would rather just vote on everything and see if it passes or fails, that's also an option for them. Thank you.
Okay, and Gaurav?
Mr. Chair, just a question for clarification. I want to be super clear on this. So the motion that was tabled and seconded to initiate or permit this discussion, perhaps, was that for variance 1 through 9?
It was, yes.
So we already have that on the table, Mr. Chair?
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, clear as mud. So, yes, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I seem from my own recollections that council would often deal with this kind of a situation where a councillor would wish something to be divided off so that it could be voted separately, and in the planning committee as well. And in fact, we do have 9 variances here. It is not one application, it is 9 variances. And we could actually technically vote one after another on each of these variances, if I have that correct, Mr. Clerk.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Okay.
So I take it in this situation, what we've been asked is to separate out 2 variances, 5 and 9, and that they be voted on separately, and all of the others be voted on unless somebody wishes them to be divided out.
Right. So what I therefore propose is that the first vote that we take will be for variances 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8. They'll exclude 5 and 9. And then we'll do a second vote on 5 and 9. And that will be that. And Gaurav, one last comment?
One last comment, Mr. Chair, about the process again. So we already have a motion on the table with a mover and a seconder. So they're amending their motion, or how are we dealing with that?
So through you, I can answer this question for you, Mr. Chair. So again, it's done purely on request from a committee member, so there is no extra motion. It is still the one large motion. We're just voting on it two separate times with for the two separate parts, the one that everyone wants to vote on together and one that one member wishes to vote for or against separately. Thank you.
Thanks for that. All right, so after that now, I'll call the vote for variances 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8. All in favor, raise your physical hands. And that is unanimously carried. And then for variances number 5 and 9, all in favor, raise your physical hands. 1, 2, 3, so 4, 5, 4, and 1 against. Okay. And the motion carries. Thanks, everybody. All right, and now we have item number F, which is for 242 Alfred Street. If we could read that into the record, please, Ian.
Thank you. Through the chair, this is an application for minor variance and consent, file numbers D10-041-2023 and D13-062-2023 for the property at 242 Alfred Street to sever an approximately 446 square meter parcel having approximately 8.4 meters of frontage along Alfred Street, and to provide relief for the lot frontage, driveway width, interior setback, and interior setback of a porch on the severed lot.
Great, thank you. And we have the applicant here.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. My name is Kelsey Jones. I'm a planner with Foten Planning and Design. I'm here this evening on behalf of the owner, David Hamilton, and happy to answer any questions from the public or committee.
Great, thanks and welcome again. Committee members, do you have any questions for the agent? Yes, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question from Ms. Jones. In the situation, we're dealing essentially with a cleanup situation, and it's just a tidying up.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions? I see none, so I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Do we have any members of the public with us wishing to speak to the application for 242 Alfred Street? Ian.
I can confirm through you, Mr. Chair, there are no members of the public present.
So I'll close the public portion of the meeting and come back to the committee for a motion. So moved by Ken, seconded by Gaurav. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your physical hands, and that is unanimously carried. Thank you. Okay, we're going to jump back to the beginning of our agenda. Item number C for 390 Palace Road. Ian, can you read that into the record again, please?
Thank you. Through the chair, this is an application for minor variance, file number D13-063-2023 for the property located at 390 Palace Road to allow for a reduced rear setback to facilitate the development of an office building addition.
Thank you for that. And so do we have the, I guess we have the applicant or the agent with us today? Yeah. So, and I'll ask you to state your name and your address for the record.
Oh, sorry, I think that was on already.
Yeah, it's on. It's on. It's red.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Armando Sardina. I'm an architect, and I'm representing my client, which is the Roman Catholic diocese, and it's a fairly large diocese, and it's headquartered here in Kingston. And what we're doing is working on an expansion to the existing building that's on Palace Road. I did an addition for them about 32 years ago, and they now want to put on another addition. So we've worked on that, but we need relief from a certain requirement we have discovered that the city, in its official plan, intends to widen out Sir John A. Macdonald Boulevard, which had not been taken into account. So, working with your excellent staff, we have looked at the situation, and I think we're all of the opinion that we will be able to accommodate the widening of Sir John A. and still keep our building addition where we propose it to be. And just for your information, if you can see that little L-shaped, upside-down L-shaped portion on that far drawing, that's the addition. And then you can see a blow-up of it here, if this is zoomed up. And we're seeking relief because we've looked at the various possibilities here for developing the scheme. And in order to make the existing building flow properly with this new addition, so we're connecting corridors on the inside, this is about what we can do. And so I hope that you will look on this very favorably and give us your approval and accept the minor variance for this project. Now, if you have any questions, please fire away.
Great, thank you very much for that. So committee members, do you have any questions for the applicant or staff? I see a bunch of shaking heads no, so I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Do we have members of the public with us wishing to speak to the application for 390 Palace Road?
I can confirm there are currently no members of the public present.
Okay, so I'll close the public portion of the meeting, come back to the committee for a motion. So moved by Somnath, seconded by Doug. Any discussion? So all in favor, raise your physical hands, and that is unanimously carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and our last one is number G?
G, but technically H because of the supplemental.
Yes, okay, so it's number H from the supplemental report for 4085 and 4091 Bath Road. Ian?
Thank you. Through the chair, this is an application to change conditions of provisional consent, file number D10-020-2020 for the properties at 4085 Bath Road and 4091 Bath Road to remove condition number 5 of the notice of decision for consent application file number D10-020-2022 pertaining to a required road widening.
Great, thank you. And do we have the applicant with us this evening? Okay. Can I have you state your name and address for the record, please?
Hi, my name is Nancy Wortman, and I'm the planner with Arcadis. My address is 844 Safari Drive. And I believe the applicant himself is also on the call, and I will allow him to introduce himself as well, but happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Great, thanks and welcome. All right, committee members, do you have any questions for the applicant? I see none, so I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Ken, you have a question? Yes.
I believe Mr. Clendenning clarified it as an application to delete a condition, whereas we have an addendum, which is in fact a recommendation to amend the condition of an existing approval.
Yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, when you passed the addendum, the note mentioned the new report, which is the supplemental report, will be dealt with before item G. They're doing the same thing. It's just that the supplemental was correcting the recommendation, and so once Exhibit H is either passed or failed, if it passes, item G will be withdrawn. If it doesn't, we'll go and talk about item G. But currently, we're on the supplemental, which is the up-to-date version.
Okay. And Somnath, did you have a comment? No? Okay. Okay, so I think I'm back to the public portion of the meeting. Do we have any members of the public with us wishing to speak to the application for 4085 and 4091 Bath Road?
I can confirm there are no members of the public present.
I'll close the public portion of the meeting and come back to the committee for a motion. So it's moved by, yes, Jeff, and seconded by Somnath. Any discussion? So all in favor, raise your physical hands, and that is unanimously carried. All right, thank you. And that's that. So moving on the agenda, we have no motions, no notices of motion, no other business. Although Jeff had a comment, a request for council for clarification. Did you want time to put that together?
Can I provide some context on that, though?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll work with our clerk and with our planning staff and formulate a motion and bring it to our next meeting.
Okay. All right, that's fair. Thank you. All right, so no other business. We have no correspondence. The date of the next meeting is January 22nd. It's a little later than we would normally have at 5:30 p.m. So now we're looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Somnath, seconded by Gaurav. All in favor, raise your physical hands. Unanimously carried. Meeting adjourned at 6:44 p.m. Thanks, everybody, and happy holidays.